Okay. Well, I'm Bob Moore with Tux500.com. Some of you may be familiar with what we're doing, some of you won't, so I'll kind of start off just giving you an overview of what we're trying to do. And I'll start off kind of at the beginning. I came up with this idea after reading, I don't know how many of you are familiar with writings of someone named, he calls himself Helios. His name's Ken Starks. He's done a lot of writing around why the Linux community really needs to market Linux to the non-technical user. And I read an article that he wrote, and it was based off of a paper that Eric Raymond and Rob Lindley had written called World Domination 201. The idea behind this paper was that essentially it breaks down to this. The 64-bit architecture will soon be the dominant architecture and will replace the 32-bit. This has happened several times in the past, and we can kind of use the past to predict what's going to happen in the future. Going back to the 4-bit, to 8-bit, all the way up, whatever operating system was dominant at the time that switch happened became locked in really for the entire duration of that architecture's dominance. Going back to Commodore 64 OS, all the way up to present day, where we have Windows XP and, God forbid, Vista becoming the dominant 32-bit OS. So as we move into 64-bit, looking at the past, we've got a pretty good indicator that whatever OS is dominant at that point is going to remain dominant for the life cycle of that architecture, which Eric and Rob estimate to be around 2050 when that architecture will be replaced. So this kind of got me to thinking, and this along with Ken's writings, got me to thinking we really need to start pushing the OS out into the public. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but in my opinion, Linux has been ready for the desktop for quite a while now. I've been using it as my primary OS for years. My family uses it. It's not at the point anymore where it's too difficult for the average user. So that, to me, naturally means that because Linux penetration right now is at 5%, people don't know enough about Linux. People aren't really having the conversation, should I be using Linux or Windows or OS 10? They're not going through that thought process. So our idea is we want to start a long-term Linux marketing program that is pushing the concept of Linux on the desktop out to the masses. So the first volley in that, and I'll get into the specifics of why I think this is the right place to start, but the first volley in that is to get a Linux-sponsored car in the Indianapolis 500. So we're raising money, collecting donations from the community at large. So far, just today actually, we went over the $10,000 mark in collecting donations. And the idea is we've teamed up with Chastain Motorsports, driver Stefan Gregoire, really nice guy, met him a couple of times now. And we're going to sponsor their car in the 500 this year. How big of a sponsorship is completely up to the community as to how much money we can raise. At the level we're at now, we're likely going to get a small logo on the nose cone of the car. But I really think, and based off of another community marketing program that was kind of another catalyst for the inspiration for this project, the Spread Firefox New York Times ad campaign, which I don't know how many are familiar with that, but a couple of years ago they raised $200,000 in 10 days to put a New York Times ad, to put a 2-page ad in the New York Times. So this community, the Linux community, being estimated anywhere from 20 to 40 million people worldwide, I would think coming up with $300,000 to put a car in the Indianapolis 500 isn't really out of the question. I mean, really, we should be able to do this. And now, back to the idea, why the Indianapolis 500? I know a lot of people think there are a lot better ways that we could start this campaign, or a lot better ways we could use the money even. My thought for the Indianapolis 500, first off, it's targeting a group of people that are generally not Linux users, right? I mean, this is the sports fan. This is, very much the average Joe. And the idea, not only is it very much a world-class event, it's, well, 350,000 people attend the race. 5.5 million people watch the race on TV in the U.S. ESPN International carries it to 300 to 400 million homes worldwide. So, I mean, the numbers are there. The numbers, as far as point of entry, are actually pretty low for an event like this. I mean, when you compare it to something like Monaco or the Daytona 500 or the Olympics or some really large event of a similar size, the cost of entry for advertising is in the millions. The reason Indianapolis is so low, some of you may know this, some may not, but in the Indy Racing League, 20 cars, give or take, run the full season. 33 cars run the Indianapolis 500, so roughly a third of the field is running one race and needing sponsorship for that race. So instead of sponsoring a car for an entire season or sponsoring a team in the World Cup or something like that, you're dealing with one race. It's a month-long event. As a lot of you, I'm sure, being from Indy, you know more, a fair amount about the race, or at least some. It's month-long media coverage for a fraction of what you would pay for similar exposure at another event. So that's the thinking as to why this is the right place to start. High exposure, low cost, and the exposure, when you're thinking about it in terms of just the event, you've got companies like Target, the New York Stock Exchange, Motorola, who are competing in this event, so obviously they view it as a good return on investment. But because of the novelty of it, we kind of think this could be much bigger than just, what, say, Target is going to get out of sponsoring this race. The fact that a community of millions of people is coming together to sponsor this car, that's a story in and of itself that we think outlets like ABC News, ESPN, USA Today are going to pick up on and make it an even bigger return for that $350,000 that we raised to have that primary sponsorship. So I've been working for several weeks now on the project along with Ken Starks, Helios that I mentioned. He and I are kind of the co-project leaders. We're working with a marketing company. It's based out of Carmel, Acceleration Marketing. They specialize in race marketing. So they've really been a big help, and they helped us find this team. They've been able to get us access to the track. We were actually out there yesterday shooting video that you're going to see it appear on YouTube here pretty soon. It's going to be pretty cool. The IMS Productions, which is the group that does all of the work for any clip that you see on ABC that's IRO related, and it's likely produced by